Hi, it's Bumbleberry, and we're here to finally get the good ending.
What are you
oh my
waiting
gosh.
for?
Anyway, let's do it.
Claim your throne.
No, don't do it.
What are you talking?
Alright, so he's gripping his head. He's okay.
Get him out of here!
This is where it stopped me before. I rushed to Matthew. Okay, I can't place my hands on him. Huh? What is this? The sound of steel clashing caused me to turn and see Matthew and Diana clashing swords. Well, at least he didn't stab her right away. And by the way, the only thing that I changed from my original playthrough was that I hugged him instead of holding hands. Like, really? Really? That changes my level of love for him? Anyway, Diana gritted her teeth as Matthew glared into her gaze.
Damn it, fool! I said, take your throne!
No! Matthew's body pulsed again, forcing him to push against Diana and send her flying back to stand beside me. As Diana reached for me, she moved a hand in front of me, blocking me from Matthew. Matthew! See, Diana defends me. How could I approve her assassination? Matthew looked up at me and Diana, his expression twitching from trying to maintain control of himself. His eyes flickered between blue and gold as he gripped his sword tightly. Sorry, getting emotional. I'm all choked up. I wasn't afraid of him, so I stepped out from behind Diana and walked towards him, holding my hands out. Matthew, it's okay. You can overcome this.
Stay back.
I ignored him and continued to walk forward, needing him to be okay. Whatever spell the Demon Lord had on him wasn't powerful enough to consume him. I needed to break its entire hold on him once and for all. Fight it, Matthew. You're strong enough to beat this. You're strong enough to beat an egg, you can beat the Demon Lord. Matthew dropped his sword and gripped his head, digging his fingers into his hair and curling over himself. He scratched his nails over his horns, angry and aggravated.
I don't want to hurt you.
Oh, and you don't mind me calling you Matthew. You won't, Matthew. I know you won't. At last, I stopped in front of Matthew's body. I gently tilted his head up and cupped his face in both of my hands. His face was warm from the mental struggle as his eyes flickered between blue and gold. I trusted him, though. Matthew loved me, and his love would crash through the spell. Let me help you. I quickly leaned in and kissed Matthew's head, making him gasp and freeze within my arms. I felt myself slowly drain of my remaining energy, but I didn't care. Matthew needed it more than me, and if I was able to free him, then I would. The air around us became lighter and easier to breathe, even as we separated. I stared into Matthew's eyes, seeing him stare wide-eyed at me in shock. They were completely painted in gold, causing my heart to tighten for a moment. Did he break it?
Enough of this! Kill her!
No! As the Demon Lord's voice reverberated in the air, a large sword embedded itself into the Demon Lord's stomach. Heck yeah! Tell me that was Diana. Or is it Matthew?
What the?
Oh, so it wasn't Diana. Look at my little Prince Pizza. He's so cute. I love him. And his little purple background. And he's like, Hacha! I am a ninja. Matthew looked back to his father, his hand extended out towards him, as his eyes finally regained their ocean blue color. My heart began to jump in ecstatic joy. Matthew had broken free from the spell his father trapped him under. Thank goodness.
How can this be? Impossible!
You expecting me to follow your orders, you sick bastard!
I stared wide-eyed as Matthew turned around and summoned a new weapon into his fist. A dark blue aura emanated from his body, flickering like flames as he stared the Demon Lord down.
You will never convince me to kill the ones I love.
Way to go, Matthew.
Insolent brat!
The Demon Lord gritted his teeth before sharply extending his hand towards Matthew's mother. We could only watch as red ethereal chains shot out from the Demon Lord's back towards Zira, wrapping around her form and crushing her?
No!
Stop it!
Your energy, woman!
Faster than we could react, red lightning began to surround and shock Azira's bound form. The red energy traveled through the chains holding her hostage and into the Demon Lord's body, making him glow a terrifying blood color. I mean, we stabbed him. Like, shouldn't he be dead? Ish. I mean, you gotta aim for that heart, Matthew. You were really good when you were possessed. You went straight for the brain. A large sword formed in the Demon Lord's hand, arcing with red lightning. Matthew's first sword, which was impaled in the Demon Lord's stomach, crumbled into ash and fell to the floor, leaving a black scar mark. Whoa. The Demon Lord's eyes, however, fixed themselves onto Matthew's form with deadly intent.
I'll kill you!
Faster than I had thought imaginable, Matthew stepped forward and vanished, only to reappear in front of the Demon Lord with his sword held high. As Matthew swung his weapon down, however, the Demon Lord held out his hand and forced Matthew back with a burst of red energy. Matthew skidded backwards, crossing his sword over his body to shield himself from the blast. As the energy faded, the Demon Lord's lips curled into a crazed smirk.
Then come, little boy! Show me what you can...
The Demon Lord stopped, staring at Matthew as his body froze. I hitched my breath. What was happening? I'm betting the mom is interfering.
Enough!
Yeah! Mama Bear, she's getting angry. Oh yeah, beat him up. You should feel ashamed of yourself. Everyone turned their heads towards Matthew's mother, seeing her hold the chain that connected her and the Demon Lord in a tight grip. Her body was shaking, but the rage in her eyes could make any demon fall to their knees.
I will not let you hurt my son!
All right. Before the Demon Lord could turn and do something, a large bolt of blue energy shot through the chain and into the Demon Lord's back, causing him to arch back and scream in pain. Matthew dropped onto me and covered me with his body as Diana blocked her face with her arms. The magic was so powerful, the room began to shake violently. I watched from the cracks of Matthew's arms as dark black and red energy traveled down the chain from the Demon Lord into Zira's body, making her body pulse and grow in power. The Demon Lord, however, became weaker and surprisingly much more frail.
You are... my...
I am not yours any longer!
Way to go, Zira. Way to stand up for your baby. Another heavy blue bolt rushed through the chain and into the Demon Lord's body, causing a splash of blood to jet from the Demon Lord's mouth. Matthew finally stepped away from me and began to walk at the Demon Lord, forming a sword in his hand. As he did, the Demon Lord collapsed onto the floor on his hands and knees and growled animalistically at his son.
It's over.
What surprised me was the smirk that graced the Demon Lord's bleeding lips and the chuckle that erupted from it.
You are indeed the perfect son.
What? Without another word, Matthew raised his sword and rammed it into the Demon Lord's neck, effectively pinning him to the ground and killing him. A bubbly cry of pain barely escaped the Demon Lord's mouth as his eyes glazed over. Dead. Woohoo! Confetti party! My heart felt major relief, shaking a bit as a weight lifted off my soul. The Demon Lord was dead at last. I was free, and we could go home now. Diana spat to the side, catching my attention.
To think his own wife and son would be the ones to kill him. What have I been doing for the past 10 years?
I don't know, Diana. I couldn't stop the amused smile on my face as Diana walked up beside me, rubbing her neck in irritation. You weakened him a bit for them, I'm sure. Diana rolled her eyes as Matthew finally rushed up the dais towards his mother.
Mother!
Aw, look at a little reunion of my little demons.
Sekeru!
Oh, you guys, they're reunited. She doesn't look very old, though. She looks like his older sister. His mother wrapped her arms around Matthew, squeezing him to her. Matthew hugged her back just as tightly and kind, joyous to see her freed from the Demon Lord's power.
I'm right here. It's gonna be okay.
I was beyond happy for Matthew. His mother was safe now, and the Demon Lord was defeated. I could feel some sort of weight lift off of my shoulders, knowing that the curse had been broken with his death. I smiled as I watched Zira cry in Matthew's arms. Oh, she's so happy. I love it. I love happy babies. Before I could step forward to join them, however, Diana placed her hand in front of me, glaring ahead of her. I looked up at her with a very surprised face. Diana?
Stay back.
I guess I'll listen to her? I nodded, unsure of why she wanted me to stay away. However, the intense expression on her face sent fearful chills down my spine as she scowled at Matthew and his mother. Was something seriously wrong? I turned my head to the pair, watching and wondering what was going on.
My sweet Sekeru, you're finally home.
Of course I am. I had to save you, right?
Azera smiled and kissed Matthew's forehead, slowly rising to her feet with him. What's happening? As she fully stood, something in the air changed. The room became a little more peaceful and bright as Matthew turned towards me and Diana.
I guess I can finally introduce you to my fiancée. She helped in saving you.
A+. Azera smiled very softly and looked to Diana, passing over me. What? I felt a little angry at being ignored, but I understood. She wouldn't expect a human to be his future wife.
The princess of Lilith's kingdom is your intended?
Excuse you, look at Matthew's face.
What? No, not her.
Before Matthew could step for me, however, Zira's face delicately scrunched up at the side of me. What the...
Why is a human here?
All of the boys married humans?
Huh? Mom, that's my fiance.
Oops, the atmosphere suddenly changed again. The air became colder and something wasn't right. Something in Azira's eyes changed too, becoming hard and vicious. Oh no, was the whole people going crazy thing gonna come back and bite us?
A human?
Yeah?
Matthew is the best. Azira locked eyes with me and I suddenly gasped and became lost in my mind, detached from my body. I couldn't move anything or speak a single word and her eyes remained their icy blue color. What was happening?
Human. Who are you?
What? I'm no... Oh my gosh. What? What? What is she having me say? I'm no one. I'm an army slut used for energy and sex. What? Is Diana having me say that? Matthew's just like, what? Matthew stared at me, completely shocked at what I had said. I, however, could only stare at Zira, whose gaze continued to burn into mine.
You are not expecting to be with my son, correct?
A human like me is not worthy. Lies.
Dimitira iam.
Oh my gosh, instantly my mind was my own again and I released a gasp of surprise. I collapsed into Diana's arms as she reached out to catch me. Azira looked at Diana, offense clearly written across her features.
How dare you!
Matthew, get away from her!
What is going on?
I looked up and watched as Azira glared at her own son and placed her hand on his chest. Her hand was engulfed in a dark blue glow that spread to the taint on Matthew's skin. Some sort of invisible force pulled Matthew back and slammed his body into the Demon Lord's throne.
Ah!
Matthew? Does she want him to be the king and, like, marry a demon lady and whatever? As his body came to rest against it, blue chains wrapped around the throne in Matthew's body. The chains began to glow and tighten around him, locking him in place.
Filthy human bitch! You don't belong in this world, and you will never have my son!
Mother, what are you...
Your mother's not here anymore, Matthew.
What?
She's been connected to the Demon Lord for too long. She's gone mad.
No.
Mad? I am speaking truth! The king of the demon world has no need for a disgusting human!
I'm pretty useful. I have magic powers. Let me show you my lion. It's like a nice little pet.
What?
King of the demon world.
I'm afraid you are mistaken.
How am I mistaken? The demon lord is dead, so his son must take the throne!
The Demon Lord is dead. The rebellion has usurped the throne. Your son no longer has claim to it.
The rebellion merely paved the way for the true king to ascend to the throne! My son was always destined to take it, and your little siege helped him achieve his
You
fate!
are
Mother, stop!
out of your mind.
Enough, Seduce!
The chains around Matthew's body tightened, and he winced and choked out a gasp of pain. I instinctively reached out and tried to move towards him, but Diana held me back, protecting me still. Azira looked at him with a sad expression, tears almost filling her eyes.
When you left, I was so alone. I didn't understand. I always asked, why? Why did my own son leave me here? You broke my heart. But then I realized it was part of your destiny.
Oh, good, Mom. Thank you.
Mother...
You were merely preparing to take the throne. You needed to experience the human world before returning and taking your rightful place when the time was right. That's why you joined the rebellion.
No, that's not true. I came because the Demon Lord cursed.
Listen to yourself. You are a demon, Succubus. You are the son of the Demon Lord, destined for greatness. Why are you fighting this?
Matthew pulled and struggled against the chains he was trapped under, no longer answering his mother. Azira, however, turned to me and Diana, rage dancing within her eyes.
You poisoned his mind. You enslaved my son!
What? It wasn't true. I loved him and he loved me. This wasn't supposed to happen. Why was Matthew's mother doing this? Was she truly insane? Diana placed an arm on my shoulder, causing me to look up at her.
Don't bother listening to her. Her mind has been consumed by madness.
And you, Princess of Lilith! You dare oppose this kingdom? You swore your allegiance to the heir of the Demon Lord! Yet you march here with an army bent on destroying the kingdom that you had pledged yourself to!
The Demon Lord broke his promise and murdered my family while I was in the human world doing his dirty work. My vow changed accordingly, and I swore that I would see his kingdom fall. A whipped woman like you would never understand.
Whipped? I merely waited for the chance to kill him so that my son could take his rightful place. Let's not forget that I was the one to strike the final blow on the bastard!
I am warning you now. Stand down.
Ooh, gold eyes activated. The room became filled with a dark energy as Zira glared hard at Diana, her eyes glowing a deadly gold color. However, Diana seemed to be unaffected by her gaze, returning the venomous look with a cold, red-eyed stare.
Such arrogance! You truly think you can stand against me?
If it means finishing the job and freeing the world from madness, then
See,
yes.
she's totally sane. I don't know what those guys were talking about. Zira snarled before a blue aura enveloped her form. Her eyes began to flicker between her natural eye color to gold as the room adopted an eerie chill.
Then, allow me to clear the field of useless
Is
trash!
she talking about me? What I didn't expect was Zira shooting a blue and black chain at me, a large blade jutting out at the end intent on running me through. Before I could scream, however, I was pushed back and fell onto the ground, the air in my lungs rushing out and leaving me breathless. Ugh! As I managed to stand up, I saw Diana standing in front of me, wings splayed out wide behind her, twitching in furious rage. The chain in question had been knocked away and vanished into the air.
I won't let you touch her!
Thank you, Diana. See, I got your
Has the
back, you got
human
mine.
world tainted you, too? You're defending a human! Yet you claim that I am the one who is mad!
Stop it!
Quiet!
With a violent wave of her arm, Zira cast some sort of black mist over Matthew's mouth. What? As it took physical shape, a large blue steel mask in the shape of a bird's beak formed over Matthew's nose and mouth, completely covering the lower half of his face.
This is for you, Cicadu. Let me finally give you the world you deserve!
What? Azira glanced back to Diana, rage fueling her glare and the cold golden color over her irises.
I will warn you now, Queen of the Rebellion, you stand against a pure-blooded succubus. Do not think you have any advantage over me. In fact, I am stronger than you can ever hope to be!
Another pure-blooded succubus. I knew Diana was, but I thought she was the only one. How could there have been another? Yeah, Diana?
I recognize the strong scent of lilies. At least this fight will be interesting.
What is going on? Everybody's gold and angry. Something in Diana's voice changed, shooting shivers down my spine. I recognized her tone of voice. The cruel Diana was back. However, Diana's hand reached back towards me. What was she doing?
Human, give me some of your energy. I don't need much to defeat this woman.
I hope he's not mad at me. Sure. I didn't want this to happen, but Diana needed to fight her. Azira had clearly enthralled me once, so I knew I was no match for her. I took Diana's hand, feeling her quickly drain some energy from my body. The taint around her form began to... The taint. It should be the tint. Oh, copy editing is a good thing sometimes, you guys. If you have like a visual novel and you want me to read it and just make sure you don't say something that is potentially embarrassing, just let me know. Okay? It might take me a while, but I'll read it. The tint around her form began to pulse and glow slightly at the new energy in her body, but Diana didn't hold on for long. Diana pulled her hand and began to chant quietly, waving her hand in the air by her head.
Enough talk! Die!
At the sound of Azira's words, a volley of chains rushed out from behind her body and shot themselves towards Diana. Before they could reach her, however, Diana formed a familiar saber in her hand, parrying all of them and knocking them away from her. As they fell, the suddenly lifeless chains vanished into the ground, making Azira growl.
You're too slow. All of those years under the Demon Lord's body must have taken a toll on you.
You insolent bitch!
Diana suddenly shot herself into the air and swooped towards the other succubus, raising her saber and swinging to decapitate Azira. However, all Diana hit was a suddenly vanishing afterimage, like Matthew.
What?
Before my eyes, Zira appeared behind Diana, floating in midair with a large chain ready to slam down on Diana's head. Diana! Diana quickly dodged to the side, knowing what my scream meant. You should just say above or left or whatever, Anyway. However, the chain slammed itself onto Diana's left wing, causing her to dip and fall to the ground. Her body bounced off the marble surface and she landed on her stomach, knocking the wind out of her.
Ah! A succubus relying on wings? A bit old-fashioned. You really are from Lilith's bloodline to still depend on that method.
Rude. Diana snarled and looked up at Zira, gripping her injured wing. It looked broken, twitching in pain under Diana's fingers. However, the wing quickly reshaped itself and folded properly, as if it had never been broken in the first place. Diana smirked as Zira stared in shock.
It may be old-fashioned, but I make it work.
With that quip, Diana flew at Zira again, her wings flapping as she sailed through the air for an accelerated boost. Zira glared before dispelling her chain and flying at Diana in return, meeting her halfway. Both of the women began to brawl and swipe at each other in the air, exchanging kicks and punches and either blocking each other's strokes or dodging them. I, however, looked at Matthew. He was still struggling against the chains around him, pulling roughly one way then another to try and find some leeway. His hands were bound to the armrest, leaving him no chance to use his powers to summon anything. Let's rescue Matthew. I couldn't just lay there, I had to do something. I quickly jumped up and ran towards Matthew, needing to help him. However, a large barrier forced me back onto the floor. Was Zira holding me back? It wasn't fair. Matthew! Well, at least I'm distracting her, using some of her power for a barrier. Diana and Zira finally shot away from each other, Diana landing near me and Zira landing beside Matthew.
Enough fooling around! You'll never outmatch me! Just surrender!
Crowing like a proud bird won't convince me of your strength. If you claim to be stronger than me, then prove it!
Once more, Diana charged at Zira, zipping through the air like a bullet. Creepy! From the shadows around Diana, lines of blue chains shot forth and reached for Diana's body. No. They wrapped themselves around Diana's arms, legs, and encircled her neck and waist, squeezing her tightly. A choked garble managed to escape Diana's throat as the chains began to pull her limbs in opposite directions. This is like the nightmare we had. No! Oh yeah, this is like the nightmare I had. Diana was chained in the air in the shape of a star, being pulled apart. However, this time it was Zira who was pulling the chains. Zira laughed hysterically as she looked up at Diana's body, seeing the result of her sneak attack.
Such a shame, Princess of Lilith. Do you not like that? I thought you wanted me to prove my strength.
Oh, no.
What a pitiful sight you are. Is that the best you can do, Princess of
Let
Lilith?
her go. I feel like throwing a shoe at her. Oh no. There's lightning. I don't like it. I had to think of something quick. I needed to save Matthew and Diana, but were both possible, especially with a barrier in the way? Alright, I better save, because I'm pretty sure that means probable death. Just saying. Here. Why not? My mind instantly thought of Cerro. He had holy magic, so maybe he had the ability to break a barrier? However, what about Matthew? What if Zira did something else to him while Cerro saved Diana? Then I remembered that I could summon Matthew to me using his real name. What if that helped him escape his bonds? There wasn't enough time to decide. I shouted at last, calling out the first name to come to mind. Cerro. Diana was in danger, and Matthew wasn't. I knew that his mother wouldn't hurt him, so I had to get Diana out of her predicament first. I am a genius. As Cerro's name reverberated from my lips, a bright light flashed through the room, causing Zira to cover her eyes, making me and Matthew turn our heads.
What?
Yeah. Oh, look how precious they are. He's so concerned about her. As quickly as it came, the light vanished, revealing Cerro holding Diana close to his body as she barely managed to stay afloat with her magic. The chains had been broken and were slowly fading away as Cerro gazed intensely at Zira. She stared back in shock at who she saw.
What is this?
Cerro.
The guard didn't reply, only intent on holding on to Diana and doing something with his spear, which he grasped in a white-knuckled grip. His body seemed to glow a white color that spread to gently engulf Diana's body in his hold.
You dare lay your hands on my queen?
As Cerro raised his spear up like a javelin, Zira stepped back in fear. The weapon began to emit a dangerous golden color in his grasp, its aura flickering through the air.
Periat celesti bestia!
Wicked beast? Something about wicked beast. With a strong throw, Cerro shot his spear at Zira, and she protectively brought her arms in front of her and formed a blue barrier around her body. The spear's blade slammed into the barrier and continued to push against it, trying to reach its target. The barrier was cracking as the spear attempted to pierce through it, but the cracks would seal themselves together again as soon as they appeared. Azira struggled to keep it from piercing through the barrier around her. Oh, Diana, barely hanging on to Cerro, guided them both back towards me, landing on the ground safely next to me before Diana almost collapsed. Give her more energy.
Isaiah?
Oh, is that her name? Azir?
Isaiah?
Okay.
I'm fine.
However, Diana's eyes rolled into the back of her head and forward as she fell into Cerro's arms. He tightened his hold on her, hugging her form to him as his eyes began to fill with panic. Diana was out for the count now. The sound of a heavy clatter echoed through the chamber as Cerro's spear was finally knocked away and fell to the ground, no longer glowing. Azira, however, seemed worn out from spending so much energy needed to defend against Cerro's weapon, and the barrier around her faded away. Go towards...
How does a demon have holy
Go,
magic?
Matthew, rescue him. I couldn't believe it. The spear was emitting holy magic? How was she able to block it and push it away? The light in Azira's eyes faded as she snarled at Cerro before she moved her hands in front of her body again and shot out a large blue orb wrapped in black chains towards him. It cut through the air with a bullet-like speed, slamming into Cerro's and Diana's bodies before Cerro had the chance to look up. They both flew backwards and slammed into the far wall, landing on the ground beside each other with a painful-sounding pair of thuds. Cerro? Diana! I looked back at Azira, both furious and fearful of her. Azira then sneered at me, stepping down from the throne dais to walk slowly towards me. I felt my body freeze at her gaze. She was enthralling me again. I fought back with my willpower, trying to deny her any control over my form, but I remained as still as a statue, only able to breathe.
You waste of space! Do you really think you can just claim my son? He is about to serve a higher purpose and you are in his way! Don't you see that?
I gritted my teeth, fighting back harder. I could feel waves of energy rush through me, ordering me to obey her mental commands, but I refused to acknowledge them. I wasn't going to give in to her.
All you are good for is being chained to a bed and milked of your energy like a good little harem girl. So much raw energy would be able to sustain him for decades!
I stared wide-eyed at her, feeling her energy surge into my body and seeing her smirk grow with each step she took towards me. Her eyes were glistening with sadistic rage.
Maybe that's what we'll do with you. You can be my son's favorite plaything.
There we go.
He'll always have a source of energy and will become powerful enough to completely rule over this world with an iron fist, while you get to live. Would you like that?
You're so weird. You're like the nightmare come true. My mind began to flash back to the nightmare I had of Matthew staring at me with a cold, sadistic gaze and smile. I had to fight myself from shuddering as I battled against Azira's hold. Matthew will never listen to you.
Won't he? I've been draining him of his willpower this whole time. He won't be able to disobey me anymore.
What? What? My heart stopped and I could feel Azira's hold take over as my spike of fear lowered my resolve. She was doing what? My eyes started over to the throne, terror clutching at my heart. He was going to obey her? I looked to Matthew to see the chains disappear from his body as he slowly stood, his head down with his bangs shielding his eyes. Why doesn't she just rule the throne? We could all be winners in this situation. I became wide-eyed as he slowly descended on the dais and began to walk towards his mother in a zombie-like fashion. Azira looked over her shoulder at her son and chuckled before turning back to me.
Now, be a good boy and chain this...
Oh, did he kill him? Or her? My voice caught in my throat as I witnessed a blade ramming through Azira's chest, making her gasp and tremble in shock. From behind her, Matthew lifted his head to reveal his tear-stained eyes. As he held onto the blade that he had impaled his mother on with a shaky grip, Zira turned her head to try to look at him. Matthew.
What?
I'm sorry, but I love her.
Aww. My heart swelled in both love and despair. This wasn't fair to him, but it was between her or me, and Matthew made his choice.
Seduce.
Goodbye, Mother.
Without another word, Matthew pulled the blade out from Azira's body and swung it up from around his head, cutting a large gash into her back and forcing her down to the ground. My body became my own again as I crawled back from her falling body. Zira hit the ground and quickly went limp, lifeless at last. Matthew, however, gripped to his blade and stared at what he had done with both pain and shame. My heart began to cry for Matthew. He had struck down his own mother, one whom he loved with every part of his being. This undoubtedly impacted him hard, and I could never know what ran through his mind. I slowly stood and walked over, standing before Matthew as he dropped his blade and averted his gaze to the side. Matthew. I slowly raised my arms to offer a hug, and instantly Matthew pulled me to him and pressed my body against his, burying his face into my shoulder. I could tell he was fighting back tears, but couldn't stop himself from letting some go, pressing his forehead against my neck. All I could do was hold him and hug him with the same amount of force. It's over now. It's over. I gently ran my fingers through Matthew's hair, trying to calm him down. Eventually, he let his sadness out, making us both collapse onto the floor on our knees, gripping each other tightly. His fingers dug into my shirt, pressing me even harder against his chest as he wept against my shoulder. I, however, was silent, trying to take everything in. The Demon Lord was dead, and so was Matthew's mother. The war had essentially been won. Aww. A soft rustle caught me and Matthew off guard, and we turned to see Cerro and Diana leaning against the far wall, slowly rising and leaning on each other to remain on their feet.
Well, that was interesting, to say the least.
Matthew didn't speak a word as he looked away from Diana. Cerro guided Diana over with a protective arm around her waist as she looked down at us.
Matthew, I'm sorry for what you had to do.
I know.
However, you saved the woman you loved.
Matthew slowly turned to look at me in the eyes as I did him. His face was stricken with tears, but his expression became one of slow acceptance.
She has been your rock ever since you met her. If you had let your mother control you, I would have killed both you and her.
Pretty sure you were gonna die. That's okay. As harsh as her words were, I could understand why she said them. Matthew and I stared into each other's eyes as we took in what Diana had said. She was right. I loved him and was happy to have him alive and in my arms. That was all that mattered. Now nobody better kill Diana after all this, or else I will be PO'd. I smiled and took his head into my hands, leaning in and pressing my forehead against his. We're alive. And we can go home now. Matthew slowly grinned and nodded, cupping my head into his hands as well.
Yeah. We can go home now.
Aww, he needs like extra hugs. A loving laugh bounced between us as we finally let everything sink in. We were together, alive, and in love. We had won, and we were going to return to the human world and be together for the rest of our lives.
Ugh.
I barely noticed the gagging noise Diana made behind us.
Cerro, take me away from this. I'm feeling nauseous just looking at them.
You're in love too, so deal with it. Cerro, however, chuckled and guided Diana out of the room, waving his hand over the air before exiting completely. As I looked around, the room became vacant of any damage or death. Why weren't there any bodies? There were no bodies or trace of any blood. Matthew and I were alone and able to hold each other and wait until the horn sounded for the war to be officially over. Matthew gently pulled me close and rested my head on his chest, resting his chin on the top of my hair.
I love you.
Oh, I'm sorry you had to do crazy things, boo. I couldn't fight the smile that painted itself over my cheeks as I nuzzled close to Matthew, relaxing at last. I love you too. And I can't fight this feeling anymore. It was over. The war was finally over, as is this episode. we will continue next time. And we'll get to see the Diana recap and the partying and what happened with Rabbit and her usurping the throne. And then we'll get to maybe have cake. Yeah, I like cake. Anyway, have a great night and stay sweet. Bye.